Hey guys, and welcome back. So before I show everything that I purchased at the Pokemon Center, there are a couple of little things that I wanted to talk about. So the event itself was absolutely brilliant. I'm only sad that they didn't have any like day spectator passes left, otherwise I would have gone and watched people actually play the TCG. But the one thing that I do desperately want to discuss with you all is the way that the event was sort of ran. Not so much by like the event staff. The event staff, the ones I spoke to, were all super polite, really lovely, very helpful and clearly very knowledgeable. The only gripe that I do have was with the security staff. Now, a lot of these people, I understand, you know, they see thousands of people every single day. However, they were all, again, everyone that I spoke to was extremely rude, very rude. So we got there a little bit early. Just because we obviously wanted to make sure that we were there with plenty of time. We got there at about 12 o'clock. Our slot for the Pokemon Center wasn't until 2:30. So I went and spoke to the security guards and was like, look, what time do I need to turn up early to make sure that, you know, I'm obviously getting in on time and not missing my slot? So the first one I spoke to said, oh yeah, you're really early. And I was like, I know, it's fine. We don't mind waiting, but you know, what time do I need to come back? And they said, quite snottily actually, 1:45, I think it was. So we go back at like 1:30, start hanging around a little bit. It gets to 1:45. So we walk in and the security guard in there was super rude, just sort of very snottily came up to us, what time's your slot? And we said, you know, 1:30. She was like, well, you're way too early, like go back, and basically like ushered us out of the door, which was a bit ridiculous and a bit unnecessary. I spoke to one of the staff members from the Pokemon Center who was a lot more polite and a lot more well informed and said, look, we're running half an hour late, come back at exactly your time slot. So again, we did, that was absolutely fine, came back at exactly 2:30, no problems there. Thankfully managed to get past the security guard that had already turned us away. She was trying to push us out the door again and was like, no, like our time slot is literally right now, please let us in. So we spoke to, again, Pokemon Center staff, they let us through. They had organised it so that time slots were like allotted via basically pens, which is fine. You need to separate your time slots, not a problem. The only issue I do have is that the queuing system within these pens was like a bit of a mess. So there was people queuing like around the edge because there was no barriers or like, you know, like the zigzaggy patterns you get when you queue. There was none of that in these pens. It was just like a free-for-all. The poor Pokemon Center staff were trying to organise us nicely, sort of get us to queue around the edge. Families with kids went in the middle so that they got to go through first, which I thought was really sweet and, you know, super nice of them. But the poor Pokemon Center staff were like dividing people up into like almost groups within these pens so that basically when one group of the Pokemon Center left, another one could enter, because the time slots were so overfilled that they had to separate even within the groups, which again was absolutely fine. The only problem with that is that because we were like separated, the security guards actually like properly kicked off at us. And it was like, well, we were put into these groups on purpose. And he's like, no, you need to queue. No one can sit on the floor. Some poor kid was sat in the middle of the pen, sorting out his Pokemon cards. And basically some security guard went over to him and snottily shouted at everyone, like, who does this kid belong to? And some poor guy walked over and was like, he's my kid. And he was like, well, he can't sit here, even though we were told, you know, that kids need to go in the middle. He was like, he can't sit here. And the kid was like, well, I'm just organising my Pokemon cards. Like, what do you want me to do? And I understand that obviously with whole like health and safety and like trampoline regulations and all that sort of thing, like sitting on the floor isn't the best deal, but there's a way to handle it. And everyone was just, honestly, everyone in the security like company that were there was just so vile to everyone. There were so many frustrated people, understandably, because there was a delay, but these things happen. The only problem is how the security guards handled it and handled everyone. There was people shouting and screaming at these security guards, people that had turned up for their slots being turned away, even though they were rightfully there for their slots. It was just a bit of a mess, and security guard didn't seem to know their head from their arse. So yeah, it was a bit of a shit show in that respect. But I have to say, and I have to give credit to the Pokemon Center staff, they were all super lovely and really nice. It was just a security team. They were honestly like really vile. There was one particular woman that I don't know whether she just had it out for me or whatever, but every time I'd walk past, she'd give me horrible looks, and it was like, look, I've only spoken to you twice about like coming for my time slot. I don't want to miss it. Like, I just want to know what I need to do and when, because there wasn't really like much organisation, at least from the outside. But yeah, in that respect, a bit of a mess. The other thing that I did also want to talk about were just general etiquette and the politeness of people. So the Pokemon Center itself was super packed. Again, to be expected. Everyone wanted to be there. Everyone wanted to buy their stuff. Everyone was there for the same reason. But it was just people pushing people out of the way. And like, you could see kids pretty much getting knocked over by adults that were desperate to get these items. At the time that we had gone, half of the stuff was already sold out, which was a bit of a shame. And I understand that people want to get the items and make sure that they're secured, but it was just the amount of people that was just pushing or just generally being, again, really rude. It's like, we're all there. Like, there should be some sort of a sense of community. Like, don't be pushing kids out of the way because they've got a pack of cards that you want. Like, it's a bit much. It's a pack of cards. I understand that some of these items are exclusive, but it was just wholly unnecessary. Like, the vlog that we did was a little bit short for the amount of items that were there. But this was purely because we didn't have the opportunity to film or record. And half the shots that we got, there was shaking as we were being pushed out of the way, or people just rudely barging in front of you whilst you're looking at stuff. It was just, yeah, wholly unnecessary. Which again, is a bit of a shame. And the final thing that I wanted to discuss was the stock levels. They know how many people had booked time slots. They knew that. That was why we booked time slots in the first place. However, when we went, admittedly, it was like 2:30 on the third day. So I believe the Pokemon Center was open the Thursday, the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday. So we were going on the second to last day. I wasn't expecting every single item to be there. However, they should have planned their stock accordingly. When we went, there was a lot of items that weren't there. All of the Pokemon plushies, all of the Pikachu plushies, sorry, at that point had sold. All of the Gengar plushies and Gengar related items at that point had sold. There was barely anything Pikachu related at all, apart from one very big Pikachu plushie and one very big like Pikachu Squishmallow plushie. But in terms of like actual Pikachu items, there was very few. As I say, same for the Gengar, same for Mew and Mewtwo, and same for all of the evolutions and for a lot of the Scarlet and Violet starters as well. It was just a bit of a shame. They should really plan their stock better. They'll be able to predict what is the best selling items, surely, because a lot of these items are already available on the Pokemon Center website, apart from, you know, a few exclusives and things like that. But they realistically should know. And if they do know this sort of thing, why did they not withhold some of the stock so that like each item was at least available at some point on each day? Yeah, it was a real shame that I didn't get some of the things that at least I'd seen other people post online about. A lot of the things related to Gengar, who's my favourite Pokemon. Yeah, there just wasn't all that much, really, which, again, was a bit disappointing. I enjoyed it nonetheless. I will be going back next year. I'm just probably going to plan it a little bit better and maybe book some time off work. But yeah, all in all, pretty disappointing. We also didn't see any of the like mascots. There was no Captain Pikachu walking around that I've seen people posting about. There was no Sprigatito walking around like I've seen people posting about. Yeah, it was just slightly disappointing, which is a bit of a shame considering it was a Saturday and, you know, all of the kids are off school. It was probably like I would assume one of the busiest days, at least in terms of people that, you know, couldn't necessarily book the time off work and with kids at school. So yeah, I just feel like, at least in that respect, they should have planned it a little bit better.